everybody. Welcome to the Chattering Magpies read along. We are continuing on with A World Away. Oh my goodness, we're past the 100 chapter mark. In fact, we are entering the end game. We are reading today chapter 105 and a little bit of 106 since, well, 106 is a monster. It's a beast of a chapter, super long but super important, I think. I mean, that's just probably me, but I think it's an important chapter, and it's long a chapter, so we're only going to do part of it. But before we do, just want to say hello to the gang that's with me. Gang, say hello.
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 Yes, happy to see you. Oh, unfortunately, I think we got word from some of our other members that are sometimes here, that are usually here. Patrick, I hope that you get home safely, stuck in traffic. Hope you can join us soon. And then we also have on YouTube, the chat, we have Liz Lepper, who was the very first one. Liz Lepper, congratulations for being first on the chat, on the early gang. So yay, Liz Lepper, how are you? Here, have a whole bunch of hearts from me. I hope you can see them, but if not, there they are. We also have Yukihime, who says hey, 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 and she's also with us. Hello, Yukihime.
Hey, hey.
And Teal as well, who says, I hope you're all prospering under Everglebe's harsh judgment, who will not be swept away by full training for another month. Oh, I know. Hang in there, everybody who is right now languishing under that polar vortex or, crazy weather. Stay warm, stay safe. Yeah. Sorry, Teal?
I just said yeah.
Oh, okay. Happy to see you, Teal. And so we're going to continue on our read-along today. But before we do so, you guys, it's been, I don't know, about a week since we read together. So any a refresher, a TLDR of what's been happening in the last couple of chapters?
A lot of Myne and Ferdinand in the sovereignty happened, and they have a lot of problems between them. Ferdinand found out that Myne is pregnant and is stressing, and then decided to, you know what, I'm just gonna attack the Royal Academy to get to the gods, and it didn't work. But Myne was there to catch him and save him. Mm-hmm. And so now he has his memories, not from the original wave, but from when she went to the past to save him.
Yes. Very concise summary. Thank you very much. You guys heard it. So there's a little bit of development, important development, because remember, a big source of contention between Myne and Ferdinand was that she's trying to help him and he does not trust her, because he's like, this girl from my feverish imagination, I don't trust this, whoever this is. But now that he remembers where she's from, I think he might be a little bit more open. We'll see. He might be a little bit more open to listening to her and what she wants and what she's there to do and what she's there to say, hopefully. So it was
still Ferdinand.
It is still Ferdinand, and it was a tender reunion. But we're gonna see what's happening, because it's been a lot of years. So it's been a lot of years. Every time she comes, then she goes, and then she comes again, rescues his life, then she goes away, and she comes again. So it's like in between, things have happened to Ferdinand. There's, he's been dealing with a lot of chaos on this weeb. So I don't know. He did at some point in the last chapter. He was like, one of the things that really kind of holds against her is the fact that she would kind of mess with his memories before, so that he would forget her, and yet he still felt like a sense of loss he didn't know what it was, but he was always living with a sense of loss because he, in his subconscious, I guess you could say, he knew there was something that he was missing somewhere. So it was kind of driving him a little crazy. But you know, that's just kind of like, anyway. So in this chapter we're gonna read, we pick up right straight from this, I think from here on out for like at least until chapter 107, we're gonna be just doing sovereignty stuff and Fermi stuff. So if you're into Fermi stuff, this is the session for you. This and next session is going to be for you. Oh look, Patrick is in the chat, says, I wish I could be there to read with you all, still on my way back from North Carolina. Do be safe, and I hope you can listen to us and enjoy the read along if you're listening to us live, but if not, if you do the replay, I hope that you also enjoy it. And also says, Chaosifer is pleased with Rosamine's mess. Oh boy, Chaosifer, do not mention that name. Remember, do not mention that name. One of the fun parts about writing this fanfic was making my own little lore. Because for me, Chaosifer is an icon. I don't know, like, just, she's very interesting to me for various reasons. So I kind of feel like that's the patron saint of Rosamine. She just doesn't know it.
Agree.
So that's why I included her in this weeb. And I am working on a chapter where we get to see a little bit more of that. But that's chapter 113, I believe. We're gonna see a little bit more, like, understand what, like, the role of all these goddesses. Remember, we already had her show up in several chapters, especially with regards to the goddesses of time and the goddess of weaving. So there's stuff happening. So we'll get to see her a little bit later. Chaosifer is, well, Patrick is saying weird things on the chat, but okay. Good on you, I guess. All right, you guys. I think it's time we should get started with the reading. So I'm excited, you guys, for chapter 105 and 106. Reading today is Myne will be read by Yukihime. Ferdy, or Ferdinand, will be read by Teal with the power of Excedrin. I'm so sorry, Teal. I am with you. I am also battling a headache, darling. So sending you a hug from afar. Hi, Remy. Thank you for joining us, Hi, Remy, as well. We needed some more roles to be read. Hi, Remy will be reading Eckhart and Eustace. All right, you guys, I am excited. And also, by the way, not to forget the people that are responsible for making these read-alongs easier on us. Yukihime, sorry. Hi, Remy and Teal. Hi, Remy and Teal. You guys were amazing at doing the highlights for these two chapters. So let's get started. We're going to be reading 105 and then the first 7 or so slides of 106. So let's get started. Chapter 105, Healing. Rosamine and Ferdinand POV. Summary. Ferdinand experiences healing. Rosamine woke from a dreamless slumber, feeling warm and comfortable and, for the first time in a very long time, so very relaxed. As her eyes adjusted, she became aware of the steady beat of Ferdinand's heart beneath her cheek, his breath a gentle rhythm against her forehead. Startled, she gasped, but relaxed upon realizing that she was still in her clothes and not under the covers with him. However, as she shifted slightly, a heavy velvet coverlet slipped across her skin. Ah, that explained the comforting warmth and the familiar scent of pine rincham and fresh green herbs, a smell so distinctly Ferdinand's that it stirred a pang of homesickness within her.
Ferdinand.
Looking up, she saw him still asleep, dreaming of who knew what that made him grimace in the characteristic style he always did. Still, even in sleep, he was holding her close to him, as if afraid or unwilling to let her go. It was such a rare opportunity to see him so unguarded that Rosamond let herself savor the moment. She gazed on at the man who was, and wasn't, Ferdinand. The resemblance was striking, but sometimes there were instances when the man in front of her became his own person, separate from the familiar entity she had left behind in Alexandria. Hesitantly, she reached up and smoothed the furrow between his brows with a feather-light touch, but even then he didn't stir. She smiled fondly and, resting her hand back on his chest, closed her eyes, intending to go back to sleep. Except the sound of the door creaking open put an end to that plan and shattered the intimate moment.
"Good morning, Lord Ferdinand.
Came Eckhart's voice.
A message has come from the Zint and
Rosamond froze, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She instinctively pulled away from Ferdinand's grasp and fumbled about for her talisman, a hastily made paper charm with a magic circle. But it was nowhere to be found. Panic surged within her. She couldn't bear the embarrassment of Eckhart Onichan finding her in bed with Ferdinand. It was too embarrassing to contemplate. Where was the dang thing?
Lord Ferdinand, is something the matter?
Oh God!
She was about to slide off the bed, to hide under it if necessary, when Ferdinand's arm wrapped around her, pulling her protectively under the blankets and tucking her body close against his back providing a solid barrier between her and Eckhart. Without so much as turning, Ferdinand spoke, his voice still roughened with the residue of sleep.
I'm resting. You come at an inopportune time.
The pause that followed was rather too long for Rosamond's nerves, and she held her breath. Her face pressed against Ferdinand's chest. Both her breath and heartbeat were definitely loud in her ears. She knew it was incredibly out of character for Ferdinand to still be abed at this hour. By the time his retainers came to him in the morning, he would already be awake, alert, and at his desk, wearing his morning robe as he muttered over documents and papers. She could imagine the subtle look of confusion that must have crossed Eckhart's face, but to his credit, his voice didn't betray it.
I apologize, my lord. Only, you did ask me to report as soon as possible after taking the sovereignty night during morning exercise. I've also bought some letters from Ehrenfest regarding...
Leave them on my desk.
Ferdinand interrupted him. His tone remained even, though Rosamond could feel the way his arm tightened slightly around her.
I'll review them later. See to it that I'm not disturbed.
Understood, my lord. I'll inform Justice to come later as well.
As the door clicked shut, Rosamond released a breath that she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She thought Ferdinand would let go, but instead he tightened his arm around her and pulled the covers up over both of their heads, creating a small cocoon of soft, dark warmth. Wrapped in his protective hold, Rosamond adjusted herself to rest her head on the pillow beside his, their faces only inches apart. A quiet stillness filled the tiny space they shared, lit only by the faint filtered glow of dawn seeping through the fabric. In the dusky, muted light, Ferdinand's face seemed both familiar and foreign, softened in a way that she rarely saw. His golden gaze, still drowsy with the remnants of sleep, met hers, and stray strands of hair had fallen over his forehead. On impulse, she reached up to brush them back.
You covered me last night?
She asked.
Of course.
He murmured. He tilted his head ever so slightly, as if leaning into her touch and silently inviting her to linger.
I would not let you freeze to death.
Her gaze, curious yet shy, traced the sharp line of his jaw. She took her time to admire his manly beauty, as her gaze moved downward to his throat, where, now that his head was tilted back, his Adam's apple stood out prominently. He was so close, so warm, and so unmistakably male, that being in bed with him felt both foreign and mesmerizing. Thrilling, too. She was no longer looking at him as she would a family member. This was Ferdinand, and he was a man in every sense of the word. Her journey through time, stepping back into the past to mend what had once been severed, had forced her to confront the truth that she could no longer deny, the depth of her emotions for him. She felt her heart open irrevocably, with a certainty that left no room for doubt. She knew, as sure as the beat of her own pulse, that her heart belonged to him. And not only that, she knew that he felt the same. This closeness, this quiet unbroken moment between them, felt like a bridge reaching across worlds, forged by a deep bond that united them even across weebs. For the first time, it didn't terrify her. It steadied her, grounding her as if, at long last, everything had settled into place. And it felt as wonderful and as right as coming home. Of course it would. No matter the weeb, no matter the circumstance, in every iteration, in every version of fate, Ferdinand would be as important and beloved to her, as essential and necessary as the air she breathed. He was her home, and a constant that she would find again and again.
I still can't quite believe you're here, that you're really with me.
He said, his voice low and with a trace of incredulity.
Last night, I half expected you'd vanish again, just like every time before.
I told you I wouldn't, didn't I?
He released her waist only to entwine his fingers with hers, and then lifted their hands, pressing an affectionate kiss to her knuckles. A spark seemed to ignite from where his lips touched her skin, warmth spreading through her in waves that quickened her breath and set her pulse racing.
That was yesterday, but for now, whenever someone comes, it might be best if you remain hidden and withdraw to wherever it is that you always do whenever you want to hide from my questioning.
She looked at him with a glint of mischief.
You know, you're reminding me a bit of Uglibe, who hides away his beloved, even when devotees want to pray to her. Please don't tell me you're transforming into the avatar of the god of life.
A faint smile played at the corner of his mouth.
A fitting likeness, I suppose. I admit I feel an irrational need to keep you all to myself.
He chuckled as her eyes widened in surprise.
But no, this is simply about sparing Eckhart and Eustace the confusion. Just for now. It won't be forever. We have a situation at hand, and at the moment, they have enough to deal with. Imagine explaining another Myne running around in the sovereignty.
He grimaced.
The thought of explaining that is enough to give one a headache. Explanations can wait.
Rosamine's playful smile faded as she looked down, hesitant.
I understand.
She replied.
I don't want them to see me either. It's just...
Her brow furrowed and she shrank back into herself. When she next spoke, her voice sounded small and almost fearful.
I can't retreat to the parallel realm anymore, and I don't want to retreat to that realm anymore.
What?
Ferdinand's shock was enough to shatter the warm cocoon they had created under the covers as his arm lifted away in surprise. The bright morning light and cool air spilled over them.
You've been hiding where? Is that even humanly possible?
In any case, since I crossed over to your side physically, I can't retreat like I used to. Yesterday I used the Verbergen talisman I had on hand, except I seem to have lost it.
It took a few heartbeats for Ferdinand to process her words. Finally, he chuckled softly.
You never fail to surprise me. Well, that explains earlier.
He studied her for a moment, his gaze lingering on her with fondness.
I'll make you another one that you can activate at will. A real one. None of that paper stuff.
Mumbling something under his breath about ingredients, he began to roll away from her to rise from the bed. But as he shifted, a sharp groan escaped him, and he clutched his side, collapsing back into the plush pillows, his face tightening with pain.
What is wrong?
Rosamine asked, alarmed. He shook his head, brushing off her concern with a dismissive wave as he made another attempt to rise. But Rosamine noticed the way his jaw tightened. His teeth gritted in clear restraint, as though he was battling against pain. She wasn't going to let him hide it, not this time. Before he could take another step, she reached out, her fingers closing around his sleeve, like a tether of sorts, making it all but impossible for him to hide the truth from her.
Ferdinand!
He paused, grimacing, the tension in his posture giving away his frustration and discomfort. She held his gaze, her eyes filled with unwavering determination, making it clear that she wasn't going to let him brush her off.
If you must know,
He said at last, sounding a little breathless and a whole lot exasperated as he sat back in bed next to her.
it's from yesterday.
When you hit the magic circle, no?
She realized, recalling his attempt to reach the Garden of Beginnings. He had slammed against the circle with such force that it was actually a small miracle he hadn't shattered every bone in his body on impact.
Why didn't you tell me? I could have healed you,
She said, reaching over to check his injuries, but he caught her wrists in his hands, determined to stave off her concern.
Ferdinand!
She chided.
This is hardly the time for modesty. Don't you remember how I healed you back in the Royal Academy? I have already seen all there is to see.
A faint blush crept onto his cheeks, and he loosened his grip, though his gaze fell away as he mumbled something.
What was that?
She asked, leaning closer, trying to catch his gaze, but he turned away, looking... Wait, was Ferdinand looking embarrassed? He knew he could easily overpower her. He also, and far more effectively, could put emotional distance from her and shut her out. Yet he couldn't shake the certainty that both of those actions would inflict terrible pain upon her. The memory of the hurt in Myne's eyes during the night of Shutsaria haunted him to this day, and he was certain that he would rather cut off his own arm than cause such pain to her, or anyone he cared for, again. He was acutely aware of the bruises that marred his side. He needed healing, but still the thought of letting her in and letting her see filled him with cold trepidation. Ferdinand's mind drifted back to the memories she had evoked. He could vividly recall that day in the Royal Academy, when he had been in the prime of his youth. Strong, battle-ready, and full of life. She had pulled him from the clutches of danger, and then forced him inside her ugly, flying grun. There she had stripped him of not only his garments, but also of his usual defenses and the icy hauteur expected of the son of an archduke, countering that not only was he a fool for not realizing the danger he was in, but he was also outranked by her, for she was a future archduchess herself, and of a major duchy too. She had seen him, as no one else ever had, unflinching in the face of his protests and the gruesome wounds he had borne from the Tennis Befallen. With a practiced efficiency, she had cleaned away the black sludge that clung to his skin and armor before casting healing magic and making him new again. Yet, once the ordeal was over, she had looked at him, lying vulnerable beneath her, undressed from the waist up, long hair loosened from his usual plait. And he had seen the blush of awareness on her cheeks. And in that moment, the sting of having been so humiliatingly overpowered by her had melted away, replaced by a proud male satisfaction that someone such as her saw him as a man and even felt attracted to him. But now, so many years had passed, more than a decade, and he was not the same man he once was, while she remained the same as then. He could feel the weight of time on his body. If she truly saw him now, she would recognize that he was no longer her equal. How could he dare to feel this way for a woman who embodied spring itself, full of youth, beauty, and vitality?
I'm not the same as before,
He said softly, the words barely escaping from his lips.
What was that?
She pressed, leaning closer. He shut his eyes tight, hiding his shame, covering his face with the back of his wrist as if to shield himself from her gaze.
I'm no longer the man I was before.
A long silence stretched between them. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, Ferdinand risked a glance at her. He found her gaze fixed on him, thoughtful and steady. The moment he did, she rewarded him with a gentle smile and reached for his hand.
Ferdinand? Listen, I don't need you to be that young man from all those years ago.
Her thumb traced soothing circles on his palm.
The man I care for, the one I've always admired, no, the one I love, is the one right in front of me. The one who has stood by my side through everything.
Her words unraveled something deep within him, and he searched her expression for any hint of pity or insincerity. But all he found was the quiet certainty in her eyes, the unwavering trust and admiration that she held for him.
Even when we're both teetering on the edge of the next life, too blind and deaf to bicker like we used to,
She said, smiling.
You will be the person I care for the most. No amount of time or sickness can change that. I don't just want the good parts. Please, let me also have the bad parts. The embarrassing parts.
She leaned closer to him and pressed a kiss on his cheek before whispering in his ear.
Painful parts too. I want all of them. For better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. I want all of you, and I promise you that will never change.
His throat tightened, and his eyes stung. But there was nowhere to run or hide, not with Rosamond there, asking him to open up to her and be vulnerable. A single tear fell from his eye, and she wiped it from his cheek, making a shing sound.
Yes, just like that, darling.
He had to swallow a lump in his throat before speaking.
You should be with someone better. You deserve better. I don't.
Let me be the judge of what I deserve, if you please.
She said, interrupting him. She raised her hand to his face, brushing her fingers along his lips, with a delicate touch that conveyed more than words ever could.
And what I deserve and need is to be happy with you by my side. That means you also need to be happy, as well as healthy. Please, won't you let me treat you? Or if you're still not comfortable, can you please summon Eustace so he can see to your care?
Ferdinand considered her words. Deep down he felt unworthy of her care, of her love. He did not deserve her. He did not deserve to be so cared for, so cherished, so loved. Least of all by Rosamine, whose alternate self, Myne, he had hurt so terribly. Taking hold of such a love was a gift he could never, ever hope to deserve, let alone pay back. He flattered himself that he was not the type to ever feel afraid. Life had beaten fear out of him. Not even death could elicit such an emotion from him. Yet doing as she asked, bearing himself and being vulnerable to her, chilled him to the core. But there was a part that said that he needed to do this, and that he could trust Rosamine with his everything, even his life. With a heart full of trepidation, he finally surrendered, giving himself over to her care, and allowing her to pull up his nightshirt to reveal not only the dark bruises standing in stark contrast against his pale skin, but also the emaciated state of his frame. He braced himself, fully expecting to see disgust flicker across her face at the sight. But when he dared to meet her gaze, there was no trace of revulsion, only shock and deep concern. She gasped as she took in the bruises, her fingertips gracing them with the slightest touch.
These bruises, they look terrible,
she murmured, and there was a hint of sadness in her tone. Her eyes swept over him, taking in the full extent of his condition.
And you're so thin,
she continued, her voice low and tender.
You've been neglecting yourself, haven't you?
There was no anger, no judgment, only a gentle, worried chastisement, as though she couldn't bear the thought of him suffering in this way.
What else?
she asked, her comforting voice ringing out in the stillness of the room. Wordlessly, he revealed his arm to her and lifted his shoulder for her inspection. She healed him there too. And finally, with a flutter of anxiety in his chest and a hesitant breath, he lowered the fabric of his nightclothes a bit, just to reveal his hip.
It's all right,
she said reassuringly.
Healing magic for Ferdinand.
The green light of her blessing filled his vision, but he was more captivated by her voice, which was laced with such tenderness and warmth that he almost imagined her words as well as her mana wrapping around him like a loving embrace. Her hands were soft and gentle, their touch sending ripples of sensation through him as they traced the contours of his battered body. Yet the extent of her power reached far beyond mere physical healing. It felt as if fingers were not just mending his flesh, but also stitching together the fragile pieces of his heart, fragments he had long believed to be broken beyond repair. For the first time in his life, he felt truly loved, cherished, even adored. The overwhelming sensation welled up within him, threatening to spill over in tears he had never allowed himself to shed. Perhaps not from the moment of his birth. Was this what it meant to be reborn? To feel so deeply, so vulnerably human? As she took care of him, he let himself believe that he could one day, maybe not now, but someday, become the kind of man deserving of the tears that glistened in her eyes as she looked at his ugly purple bruises. After lowering his nightshirt once more, she lay next to him and wrapped her arms around him gently. He responded in kind, drawing the covers over them. She yawned and closed her eyes as she said something about deserving a you in return for her care.
Thank you,
he whispered as he held her closer.
You're welcome,
she purred contentedly, nestling against his side. Then she did something that caught him entirely unaware. She pressed a kiss on his chest, right on the spot over his mana organ. He stiffened slightly at the reminder of, no, He wouldn't think about that now, of who he was and how unworthy he felt. Ferdinand resolved then and there that once all this was over, he'd strive to become the man she needed and deserved him to be. And that gave birth to a newfound determination to live, to deal with the current crisis, make it out alive, and somehow return to Ehrenfest. No matter how bleak things appeared at the moment, he would figure out a solution, because there absolutely had to be a future for him and Rosamine. One where he would finally be able to cast off the curse of his birth and make up for his past mistakes. One where she would no longer have to leave him, and where they could build a life together, unencumbered by either his past or her future. End of chapter.
Oh my god. This is so beautiful.
Yukihime, I love the fact that you're reading, but you're also chatting. Ah, the emoji storms.
Yeah, like whenever I'm not specifically reading, I'm switching tabs on my phone to the YouTube and being like, "Tick, tick, tick, tick." Okay, I'm not gonna spam the comments with emojis, but I'm going to spam that little thing on the side. Okay. Yeah. Also, because Patrick is not here, if you like this and you'd like to come and join and read with us, please go on the coffee, come here on the Discord, or at the very least, like and subscribe to this channel so that you can see even more.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much for reminding everybody to be part of this beautiful community of people who simp for of fans of Ascendance of a Bookworm. It is the nicest community ever, the most wholesome corner of the internet.
Yes, agree.
And yeah, I see the chat, you guys. Crusher, Patrick. Oh, and then here's Tracy Fergie. Welcome, Fergie. How are you? Happy to see you. Says, I just finished making dinner. Sorry I'm late. Well, I'm glad that you joined us, Fergie. And by the way, I just want to give props to Teal and Yukihime, who did such a good job here.
Hiremi.
And Hiremi. Yes, yes. You guys, all the feels. I loved it. It's better than the voices I heard in my head when I was writing this. I know it sounds creepy because the voices in my head, but you guys know what I mean.
I got you. I thought about you were talking about the highlighting. This was such an important chapter also for my heart when I read it. So like, I really tried my best to do us emotional because it's so important. And also I want to like share my thoughts from when I first read it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually I kind of knew that it was going to be all chapters honestly are killing me. So I took time out of my day just to like sit down for 2 hours. I was reading a sentence, crying for 10 minutes, reading another sentence, crying. Like genuinely, I could have not read this live with you guys. Yeah, I need my time to like process it, and it was amazing. Like, also, I don't just want the good parts. Please let me also have the bad parts, the embarrassing parts. Poor masterpiece of writing. Bye.
Aw, thank you. So, here's the reasoning behind the words that she said, okay? If we go back to Hannelore, basically they got married against his will, or without it being like a big hullabaloo for him, because he's dying and they have to like do the starbind because she has to go save his life. So he didn't experience like the legit wedding, but Rosamine did. So she feels like he needs to hear those kind of vows because she comes from our world, right? And of course, I don't know if the Japanese vows are the same I don't know what they say in their. I don't know what they do. I think they just drink like ceremonial sake, and I don't know what else. But so I'm like, excuse me, readers. I come from the U.S. of A. So I just put the traditional marriage vows that we use here.
It's okay.
So
Everybody has heard them in movies, so it's okay.
right. So that was my reasoning why she had to say these words before he finally dropped his defenses. So I get it, like Ferdinand is not quite the Ferdinand that we know from canon, and I would never expect him to drop his defenses like that, because he's essentially a different person than Ferdinand. Like, he looks like Ferdinand, he sounds like Ferdinand, but he's not the Ferdinand we know. It's a different character. So he has. Hey, Patrick, you're here.
No, it's not lewd. It's heartfelt.
Chaos for my Lord and Savior, please come and smite these fools who would make such a spectacle of their romance.
See, we had a bet going on, you guys. Before we went live, it was just the girls and me. Teal and Yukihime and Liz and me. And we're like, the guys are not going to show up. And if they show up, what chaos are they? They're going to go like crazy. Like, they'll be like, oh my gosh. And it happened.
Okay, so who won? Who guessed what I would do?
We all knew that you guys would be like, making a big hullabaloo out of it. And I love it because it's so charming. It's so lovely to see. Like, you wouldn't blink an eye at gore and violence, but the moment there's feelings and stuff involved, it's like, oh my gosh.
Chat, she's acting like this is wholesome, but she's secretly annoyed by my constant outbursts.
Not really. I think it's funny. It's just it gets a little difficult to control when you get a gang behind you and spamming the chat and the conversation.
I am the gang.
All right.
One man army.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
One
but
man
like,
army.
It's not that lewd. Like, we're not even doing the
They're not
hentai
doing
chapter,
nothing.
you know?
Yeah. Which is why they're just trolling. They're just trolling.
Oh, they're not doing anything except for sleeping in a bed together and hiding Myne under the sheets next to his scantily clad form.
Oh, come
and
on.
she's tracing circles over his bare skin.
Nobody is
telling him to undress.
Nobody is scantily clad here. This is Jürgen Schmidt. Scantily clad
sure.
full on
Whatever.
PJs.
We all know you're
Ferdinand
making excuses.
Ferdinand is a little bit naked at the end, you know, like with the healing and stuff,
yeah.
but, you know... but it's cute. It's not lewd.
It's wholesome. It's healing.
Exactly.
It's healing fluff. It's nothing besides that. it's a medical procedure, and if you see lewd in the medical procedure, then what was it that he told Frau Alarm in Part 5, Volume 8?
Yeah, it's just a medical procedure.
Either way, I felt like I had to make up for my lack of being here at the beginning of the video.
I'm glad you joined. Are you gonna stay around, or are you still driving?
Nope, I'm home.
Ooh,
I'm staying.
Yay! Glad you made it home safely. Cool. All right. So, by the way, another note I have to say about this, just because it amuses me to no end, or it warms my heart. I wrote this chapter, I believe. Let me see. What chapter was it? This is 105. Oh, dang. I wrote this in November. And I was still... It took a... Whoa. I took a break for like a little bit over a month before I wrote this chapter. So between the last read-along and this one, it took a month for me to update with this chapter. And when I did, I went out walking. I woke up, went out walking. And as I was walking up and down my hills, I got a call through Discord, and it was Yukihime, who had just finished reading the chapter, and she sent me. I think she sent me like a little voice message at first, and then she called me just to talk about this chapter. And I thought
She
it was
had
delightful.
thought.
Testing the waters. I was like, can I call her? Like are we that close? And but I was like, nah, I please let me call you. I
See,
had a lot of fun.
And that's one of the perks that you get when you are a member. I probably am going to answer if you call me. I don't answer my phone, but I would answer the Discord because I know who's calling. So, just saying. It's probably that you get a direct line to get to Magpie.
I don't think there are many of us here who actually have her phone number.
Nobody has my phone number, but you can access me through Discord, and I'll probably answer. It depends if I'm at work. It just happened that Yukihime caught me while I was on my own walking, enjoying the golden morning of a beautiful morning of autumn. And I was like, cool, I get to talk to somebody while I walk. So it was nice. So, you guys, one more chapter, or at least part of a chapter. The next chapter is called Copy and Place. It still is dealing with Rosamund and Ferdinand. It is entirely a Ferdinand POV, though. And we're just going to delve right into it. It is a very long chapter. I think this was the next chapter. Teal highlighted. Teal, good job on doing this one. It's a monster of a chapter.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think the last time you did something that was about this long was the Feline POB, the Princess in the Tower. I think it was the interlude.
Yeah, and I think that one was a little longer. But
oh, I see. Okay, so hey, at least you're lucky because I was going to do this is for those of you who are following with AO3. I was going to do Bells 1, 2, and 3 as a single chapter, but I decided to break it up, thinking of you guys, the highlighters. So none of you would be overworked. So all right. So
also, one thing, I had my heart jumped out of my chest the first time when I was like, is Eckhart going to find them out? Like, is he just going to find Myne in Ferdinand's bed? And
I want him to. I want that to happen. I just want the chaos.
I also want the tension there to explode. I want Ferdinand to figure out how to explain this.
Right now they're in emergency mode.
Lord Ferdinand! What is Myne doing here? Why are you in bed together?
The heartbreak he would experience,
so broken-hearted.
Do you really want to do that to the murder doggo?
Yes.
Hey, you're the one who wants the people that you care about to suffer, so...
Suffer so that I can heal them later with my love.
I mean, this can
yes,
be...
let him suffer heartbreak, and then he can be healed by the truth.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Exactly.
We will see.
But also, I want I constantly imagine if they meet, Rosamund would be like, oh, Eckhart, brother Eckhart, what are you doing? And act to him like a brother, and because she doesn't know what's up with her version, and that image. That mental image is constantly in my mind.
I like this even more now.
Brother
I like this even more. Siscon Brocon.
Oh no! Oh no! No, we don't want that. Well, I can't say.
Need this more.
I can't
say
say without spoilers. So I'm just gonna. You guys are just gonna have to hang
Red,
tight and read
Red,
along
help me on this.
to find out. I don't believe Red has caught up to where we're at. He's somewhere in the 70s. So good luck.
I know, but when he eventually gets to this part, he will understand.
All right, Red, if you are listening, you know what to do. Just do not Do not do anything in the Ferdinand shrine, okay? That's all. That's my rule. You can meme all you want, but leave the Ferdinand shrine
Do
pristine
it.
and perfect.
Do it.
All right, Patrick, we're going to read now. Final chapter. It is chapter 106, Copy and Place. And as somebody said in one of the comments for this chapter, this bookworm is the only place where the phrase copy and place or copy and paste would have people go like, hey, 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 you know, think of all kinds of things. So we'll see.
Oh my.
Because do
There's
remember,
a lot of words like that, you know, like
winter's
that-
coming.
like winter, just the snowflake emoji can be lewd now.
Yeah,
You've ruined the snow emoji.
yep. Every time I see a winter's coming meme, it's been, yeah.
Yes.
Winter is coming?
Patrick, I am going to kick you out.
I think I might deserve it for that one.
Yeah. Stand down, please. All right, let's do this. Chapter 106. Chapter 106. Copy and Place. Ferdinand. Summary. Ferdinand and Rosamine work on Eglantine's Grutris height with expected results. Ferdinand crafted Rosamine a ring to replace her paper talisman soon after. They went into his hidden room, where he spent the better part of an entire day obsessing over its design before crafting it himself. Rosamine didn't point it out, but the slight smile on his lips and the way he went about gathering together the various ingredients and brewing instruments with brisk alacrity spoke of his cheerfulness. Initially, Rosamine watched him prattled on beside him. She even offered to help, but he turned her down, instead pulling her reading chair closer to his workstation so she would be just within reach of him.
Very well. I'll just keep you company.
She said, settling in with one of his tomes. She buried herself in the book, her face alight with eagerness. It was one of the half-dozen or so books he'd borrowed from the Royal Library for research purposes, and apparently she had never read it before. Sometimes she chirped a question, asking his opinion or clarification on what she had just read. Other times she simply shared her thoughts, though Ferdinand was busy with his own work. He found himself responding and even engaging in conversation as he worked. Ordinarily, he would have found it annoying to have to split his attention thusly, but something about it being Rosamine, sitting next to him, talking to him, just being near him, made the whole thing rather charming. This was new to him, this effortless rhythm of conversation, this shared love of knowledge. He never had someone who truly understood or cared for his interests. Those closest to him, like his retainers, either viewed him as their superior, or, like Sylvester, dismissed his intellectual pursuits altogether. But Rosamine was different. She was ravenous for information, her hunger mirroring his own. And as she was a gifted scholar in her own right, he could speak freely without feeling the need to hold back or simplify. That was refreshing. The morning melted seamlessly into the afternoon. She continued reading while he brewed, and the silences grew more prolonged. Not from discomfort, but from an unspoken ease that wrapped around them like a familiar, warm cloak. Every so often, however, Ferdinand's gaze drifted toward her. She sat utterly engrossed, her brow furrowed in concentration, or her lips curving faintly in response to something on the page. Yet, once or twice, their eyes met by chance, and each time she offered him a quiet smile. Without thinking, Ferdinand found himself returning those smiles with a faint curve of his own lips, before turning back to work. Each of those moments sent a soft pull through his chest, a sensation foreign yet faintly familiar. He almost felt like they were having a silent dialogue. The sense of oneness, as both he and Rosamine became more absorbed in what they were doing, Yet, yet the somehow became closer, was astonishing and delightful. So this was what it meant to belong with and to someone. And it existed only because he'd chosen to let her in. He had let her see his everything, or near to as much as he could show her without crossing certain boundaries. But he'd done it all the same. It had been a gamble on his part to trust anyone enough to be vulnerable with them, but his reward was this steady trust, and the quiet assurance that, despite the years of separation, had blossomed between them. It was everything he'd ever dreamed of, but never dared to hope for, and it filled him with a warm contentedness that was far more meaningful than just transitory happiness.
Relax, Ferdinand.
She said suddenly when she looked up and saw his eyes resting on her.
I'm still here.
For now.
He murmured, his voice soft. She tilted her head, her smile widening.
Where would I go? I'm stuck here, whether you like it or not.
Good.
He replied, his tone firmer this time, and his eyes meeting hers with quiet intensity.
Don't leave. I mean it.
I won't.
She whispered, holding his gaze.
Not this time. Not without you with me.
Her words struck something deep within him, sending a wave of relief coursing through his chest. Since yesterday, he had carried the unspoken fear that she would leave him, that her path would inevitably take her away, far away, and that he would be left behind. He had known with dreadful certainty that such a loss would undo him completely. But now, hearing her promise to stay, to face the future together, lifted a weight he hadn't realized was crushing him. No more words were necessary. She was his, he was hers, and whatever lay ahead, they would face it side by side. For the first time, Ferdinand dared to look forward to the future, not with trepidation, but with quiet hope. And the future with her? That was more than he had ever allowed himself to dream. What they shared, this unspoken understanding and this steadfast connection, was unlike anything he had observed in others. Sylvester's easy warmth with Florencia, Eckhart's fierce devotion to Myne, those bonds had seemed distant and unattainable for most of his life. But this was different. This was his, and Rosamine's. After a lifetime spent alone, Ferdinand finally understood what it meant to share true intimacy with another person. And for a man like him who had weathered so much in solitude, this moment was beyond precious. The spell was broken by a timid knock at the door.
My lord, what about lunch?
Eustace's voice carried a note of concern. Ferdinand blinked momentarily, disoriented, as if reality had pulled him back. He'd neglected the entirety of his day's duties, utterly absorbed in his task, something so out of character that he was sure his retainers were beside themselves with worry. Yet, he had work to do. He opened his mouth to dismiss Eustace, but Rosamine cut him off.
Don't even think about skipping meals.
She chided him gently. Ferdinand blinked in surprise, and upon meeting her smile, he realized that she understood far more about him than he gave her credit for. She continued.
Besides, if you don't eat, I can't eat. And I'm getting a little hungry.
She said it lightly, but there was a firmness to her gaze that made him relent. Ferdinand sighed, a faintest smile tugging at his lips.
Can I tempt you with a nourishment potion instead?
Nope.
She said, crossing her arms.
They give me tummy aches.
A soft chuckle escaped him. He reached out, his touch impossibly gentle as he brushed his forefinger along her cheek.
We can't have that, can we?
Xantha-like, She tilted her head slightly into his touch, her golden eyes shimmering with mischief.
Definitely not. You'd feel awful if I killed over, and then you'd have to doctor me through the night. So better feed me properly, Lord Ferdinand.
Very well.
He said with a mock sigh of resignation as he stepped toward the door.
I suppose I must keep you alive. Replacing such a valuable laboratory assistant would be far too much trouble.
Her grin widened and she reached out, giving his sleeve a playful tug.
I am irreplaceable, and you know it.
He paused, glancing over his shoulder at her. His expression softened and the corner of his mouth twitched upward. He was going to reply, but she activated her paper talisman before he could do so.
Typical.
He murmured and then turned to the door. He opened it just enough to speak to his retainer and retrieve the food-laden cart waiting outside. With practiced ease, he wheeled it in, the enticing aroma of warm bread, soup, and herbs filling the room.
Come out now.
She materialized once more, eyes lighting up as she beheld the food on the cart.
Oh, that smells divine. Can I have some?
I had no intention of starving you.
Ferdinand remarked dryly, watching as she availed herself of the delicate saucer under his teacup and a teaspoon as her eating utensils. Lunch was light, as usual, but it was far more delicious than he remembered food ever tasting. The two of them seated side by side, sharing dishes with an ease that felt surprisingly domestic. Ferdinand reflected that he could get used to this, sharing his meals, his space, his time, and his life with another person. When Eustace returned to collect the carts and dishes, Ferdinand's retainer hesitated, clearly noting his master's unusually good mood, and how he had polished off almost all of the meal.
You seem to have enjoyed it.
He remarked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Ferdinand cleared his throat.
It was a particularly good day today.
Eustace inclined his head.
I'm glad to hear it. I'll be sure to inform Lady Myne. She will be pleased.
With a nod, Ferdinand shut the door behind his retainer, only to turn and find Rosamine looking at him with curiosity.
Did I send you food in this wave too?
For a moment, Ferdinand hesitated. Speaking of Myne felt oddly complicated. He dismissed the topic with a quiet,
Never mind that. How are you holding up?
I could use a nap. I got really sleepy all of a sudden.
It's just as well.
He rubbed his forehead.
Eustace reminded me of some pressing matters I must attend to. You'll need to amuse yourself for now. Though,
He added, his brow furrowing.
you also need clothes and an attendant to see to your needs. I hadn't considered how this cohabitation arrangement would work.
Rosamine waved a hand dismissively. Sorry, guys. Let me just take a drink of water.
Hydrate!
I know. Rosamond waved a hand dismissively, her smile easy.
Oh, don't worry about that. I'll just camp out in your room. I promise not to get in your way. But a few clothes would be nice. Just something to sleep in, something warm too. During the day, I'll just keep using this outfit. It's designed in such a way that I can slip it on and off without help.
Ferdinand turned sharply, his eyes tinging red as an unwelcome image of her changing drifted into his thoughts. He cleared his throat.
I'll see to it then,
He said, his voice a touch strained.
Rest if you can. I'll be back shortly.
Okay.
She said, already curling back into her reading chair, reaching for her book. Or rather, his book. He stepped out of his hidden room and went back to work directly, his expression hardening once more as he faced Eckhart and Eustace, both of whom wore grim looks that reminded him of the matters that he had left unattended in the hours he had indulged himself with Rosamine and magecraft. The urgent world beyond the safety of his chambers pressed in. The attack on the pregnant Myne, the precarious state of his home duchy, the sovereignty Temple's demands, and the unfinished book of Monsieur Nora. Ferdinand squared his shoulders and set to work, forcing himself to compartmentalize his thoughts. Yet even as he turned his focus to duty, a part of him remained tethered to the quiet sanctuary he had left behind, where Rosamine waited. He already missed her, and he regretted terribly that he had to hide her and keep her inside his room. But he had a duty to perform, so he quickly went through his day's work, hoping that she'd be so engrossed in her book that she'd not feel neglected. At last, evening was upon them. Eustace proceeded to prepare him for the night, and Eckhart excused himself. He was going to go to Ehrenfest very early the following day to see Myne and collect information, as well as some much-needed ingredients from Ferdinand's estate. Eustace brought in Ferdinand's dinner, and Ferdinand dismissed him, saying not to bother to come back for the dishes. He was going to work in his hidden room, and he wheeled in the cart there himself. When he finally opened the door to his hidden room, she was exactly where he had left her, curled up in her chair, utterly engrossed in her book. The sight sent an odd mixture of relief and exasperation coursing through him. He cleared his throat, but she didn't look up. Finally, he crossed the room, plucked the book from her hands, and lightly tapped her on the head with it.
Dinner.
Rosamine blinked up at him, startled.
Oh, you're back! I didn't even hear you come in.
You were too absorbed.
He replied, though his annoyance was softened by her cheer.
Now, are you hungry, or shall I eat alone?
Oh, I'm definitely hungry.
She exclaimed, jumping up to help him. Together they rearranged his workspace to make room, and she was very, very careful to avoid disturbing his tools. He put the finishing touches on her ring after dinner.
Give me your hand.
He said once he was finished. Without hesitation, Rosamine extended her left hand. He slid the ring onto the finger next to her middle one, the cool metal settling snugly.
Now channel your mana into it.
Obediently, she did so, gasping as the enchantments activated. The black, white, and red gemstones, modeled after Marusaski's berries, a symbol of good luck, glimmered faintly in the light. The band, delicately shaped like intertwining ivy, seemed almost alive in intricate beauty. She held her hand up, letting the light catch the ring's facets, her eyes sparkling with admiration.
You put more than just an invisibility function.
She murmured, tracing the intricate design.
This took too much of your time. Thank you.
It should serve you well.
Ferdinand replied gruffly, though a faint trace of warmth softened his tone.
In addition to invisibility, it also silences your movements and voice. Being invisible is of little use if the person you're hiding from can hear you.
Rosamine tilted her head, studying the ring with a discerning eye.
But there's more to it, isn't there?
She asked, her gaze narrowing on the red gemstone. Ferdinand paused before answering. He recalled seeing her shiver at night.
Despite it being spring, the nights are still particularly frigid. That stone is enchanted to help regulate your body temperature.
Rosamine's smile widened at his thoughtfulness.
It's perfect. I'll treasure it.
All right, so this is where we're gonna stop for this chapter, because it's a long chapter, but I think it's a good place to stop. So thank
Not
you,
the
you guys.
cliffhanger.
It's not even a cliffhanger. He basically gave her
Yeah.
a ring and he put it on her left hand. I don't know. Yes.
Oh my.
Yes. So I know a little. Indulge me, you guys.
It's perfect.
I don't know. I was just like, ooh, he's gonna do it.
Yes, the Adelgisa ring to hide his Geduld.
Well, he is a bit. This is a weave that is very influenced by Everglebe, so there are some Everglebian tendencies in this Ferdinand. I mean, there always
Oh come
are,
on,
but-
he's always had those tendencies.
Yeah, but they're much
even
more
in,
marked.
even
this
in
one.
the canon weave.
Yes, but in this weave, they're much more pronounced.
Is that perhaps a proclivity of the author?
No,
Perhaps?
this is because the weave is collapsing and the seal that traps Erwin, no, sorry, the seal that traps Everglebe is weakened in this one. So, since this is his patron god, I guess you could say. All right.
No
so-
wonder his no wonder his mana color is white predominantly.
Right, it's balanced. Let me see some comments. Fun fact from Teal. Rosamine says copy petan in the OG Japanese for copy and flat. I understand why Quoth used copy and place instead, though. Makes the mistake seem more natural in English. Ah, yeah, I always wonder what the petan was, and okay, it's...
Copy petan.
I like it. I now understand it better. Thank you, Teal. Yeah, we're gonna get copy and place, or in this case, copy and place is going to happen in the next read along, because they do have to make that Book of Misty Nora. It's important that they get it done. Yukihime points out that he gave her a ring. Yes, he could have given her any kind of talisman. He chose to do a ring. Again, that's also me just wanting to like continue on the play of marriage and just like eternal bonds and whatnot. I don't know. I'm a big simp. Leave me alone.
Yeah, it's cute.
I don't know. Just I like it. I like the imagery. And then
Patrick made a whole lot of comments.
He did. So, well, do you want to share them, like just, or do you want me to read through them? Do you want to just share them out?
I mean, I can imagine when they're working and they're stealing glances at each other, and Rosemine's smiling, and he's just smiling shyly, like, I don't know what to do here.
But he still loves it. So, if you guys remember, way back at the beginning of the story, there was a chapter where Ferdinand is... I kind of had to put a little bit of work before so I could make this scene more, or the healing scene especially, kind of have more of the impact that I wanted to. But I had to like start from, there was a chapter where he was already saying like, I don't deserve mine, and he was already saying like, I'm already like kind of like a shadow of my past self. So I've been working from there to lead to these chapters. And then also when Sylvester and Florencia, remember there was a chapter when Sylvester got poisoned, and he noted that Florencia came running and she was crying, and Sylvester couldn't talk because of course he's been choking because of the poison. But he noticed that there was like so much like they could share towards each other, like she was holding on to him and kind of gave him like Sylvester gave him some kind of like safe feeling of safety, of relief. Like he didn't have to say anything and she didn't have to say anything to him. They just kind of knew and understood because their bond is particularly strong. So he says like he had never seen something like that, had never experienced something like that, and he felt like he wished he could experience something like that.
Oftentimes people who are very much in love can say whole paragraphs without actually uttering a word and just giving a glance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially if you
Oh.
like after many years of just being together, you kind of already know. So yeah, this is something that Ferdinand always wanted, and so I had to like work my way to this. So even as far as then, when I knew that what was gonna happen in the story, how the story was changing, I already knew that these were some things that I was setting up for these chapters to kind of like have
Hey,
it
Teal.
pay off a little.
Hey, Teal, how about you
Hi.
say that comment out loud?
Ferdinand took Beyonce's advice. He liked it, so he put a ring on it.
Oh.
I have the song in my head now. Thank you. The good thing is that it's a great song. So yes, he did take her advice. So another thing that I want to point out is, before these chapters, he always thought that Rosamund was just gonna leave, but she told him, "I'm not gonna leave," and he takes it as she's gonna stay with him. Though of course she means something entirely different, but that's for later to sort out. All that matters is that
she says.
Mhm.
Yeah, she says there that I'm not leaving, not without you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my.
Right. So he thinks that the future that they're gonna have is now. Like, he doesn't have to worry about her going now because he knows that they're gonna be together now. So that's also one of the reasons why he was able to open up a little more. So. All right, I think there's other comments that Patrick left. Someone's gonna notice the increase in Ferdinand's increased consumption. Yes. And Eustace noticed it immediately because Eustace is incredible. And we'll see. I mean, Ferdinand said something about Rosamund needing attendance and clothes and I don't know what. I don't know. I think if he were to do that, everybody would catch on that there's something fishy going on. So
I need a female attendant.
Ferdinand, if you want flowers, just go to the church.
He is at the church. He is the church. Oh my. So Eustace is always paying attention, as Yukihime points out. Now, Patrick, what is this question you asked? When
is Eustace going to ask who Ferdinand is hiding in his hidden room?
Read and find out. Eustace is a smart man. It's really not a matter of
Not much escapes
when or
him.
how. How is he going to, or what is he going to do? He's gonna figure out that there's something going on. Like, already he noticed, oh, he ate all these things. Oh, okay.
Oh, he's going to take his meal in his hidden room, and he took the cart in by himself.
Yeah, so as the rest of the chapters come, you will see other instances where, probably it's gonna be really hard to hide Rosamund. Like, at this point, it's like, maybe you should just kind of like explain yourself, have her appear and just be like, okay, you guys, Rosamund, Eustace, Eckhart meet each other, say hello. But now, because I decree that it shall not be so. Because plot. All right. And then here's this question: why does the design of the ring remind me of Adelgisa Villa? Ooh.
Yeah, it's something about the vines and everything. I don't know why. It just made me think of the Adelgisa Villa.
Yeah, because there's ornate window covers. Or what do they call them? Iron bars? Instead of it being like just straight iron bars, they were like beautiful decorations, but they were still iron bars. That's a nice detail. Let's pretend that that's something that subconsciously stayed with him, as like, I want to trap you or keep you with me all the time now. But I will admit, my sister, she likes like vintage jewelry. She likes to collect like cute rings and stuff. So around, I don't know if it was around this time or earlier, like she and I went to a thrift store, and there was a really cute ring. She didn't end up buying it, but it was really pretty. It was like ivy things, and it just stuck in my head. And I liked it a lot. I should have bought it, but I don't use jewelry, so what in the world would I use it for? Which, now that I think about it, is, as a magpie, I should have been on it. I should have been on it, but my shiny
Not
things.
living up
Yeah,
to your name.
I know. I should have gotten it. It still lives rent free in my head, so I probably should have just gotten it for me. Oh well, too bad.
Yes, there are a few things that live rent free in your head, such as Ferdinand.
Yes, but that's no secret, right? Also, Harami points out they are flirting bad. Ooh. And wait till they actually get going. Ooh. I'm sorry, you guys. I hope that this, though, builds the anticipation for the next read-along. We are going to finish the rest of 106. It'll just be one chapter, because it's a long one. But somehow, if you are enjoying these For My moments, do be sure to join us on Wednesday, and we will finish this. And to those of you that want to read, you know how to do it. Hop on over to my Ko-fi, become a member, join the Discord gang. And if you're already part of the group, just be sure to join us a little earlier so that you can nab a roll. And the people that today...
Yes, always be sure to arrive early so you can get a roll.
So today, speaking of nabbing rolls, I just want to say a huge thank you to the people who read today. It was all about the ladies. Yes, ladies. Half of me wondered at some point, I'm like, the guys are just going to avoid these two chapters, aren't they? No, I'm glad to be proved wrong.
I meant to read it. I really did. I just,
I know.
I didn't get home on time.
All right. Next time, hopefully you are able to pick up a reading roll if you want. Today, Hirami read Eckhart as well as Eustace. Thank you so much for doing those rolls, Hirami. Yuki was reading Myne, and Teal was reading Ferdinand. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you so much. And I hope that you join us for Wednesday afternoon. No, Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday afternoon. Have to sort my days. All right, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you on Wednesday. Sorry.
All praise and glory be to Cassifer.
I think you're the only one that's going to be saying that. I don't think there's going to be anybody else jumping on that bandwagon. But you do you.
I have my minions. They will join me.
All right. Okay. If you get enough, we can do a Discord roll or something. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.